U.S. President Donald Trump's latest tariffs have come into effect. They impact more than 90 countries, including Canada. Trump is pledging they will reshape the global trading system. Now, depending on the country, the tariffs range between 10 and 50%. Trump says they'll encourage jobs and manufacturing to return to the U.S. He's also promising they'll raise billions in revenue, saying they work by forcing U.S. importers to pay a tax on goods purchased from other countries. Economists say it's likely those extra costs will actually be passed on to American consumers. My next guest has been closely following U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war with Canada. Andrew Furey is a former Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. He joins us now from St. John's. Premier Furey, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Let's start with a 35% U.S. tariffs on some Canadian goods. So far, we haven't seen any retaliation from Prime Minister Mark Carney on that, any additional retaliatory tariffs. What's your assessment of the federal government's approach so far?
Well, I think it's been a very wise and strategic, a cohesive approach on behalf of all Canadians. Of course, the Prime Minister has to weigh all industries, not just the specific industries that are immediately impacted, but has to weigh industries against industries, has to weigh region against region, and the unity of the country and the resolve of the country, the identity of the country, wrapped up in this mess, this tariff mess with the current president of the United States. So I think behaving in a calm, in a rational, in a Canadian manner, as the Prime Minister has and all the premiers have, is the most sensible path forward. We have seen other countries, another collection of countries even, who have responded to the president's threats, who have responded to his actions. And frankly, they've come away with, some would argue, I would argue, not the best deal for them or their citizens. So I think it's important that we not lose sight of getting the best deal. The immediate deal, of course, we're all focused on the acute threat of the tariffs, but getting an immediate deal is not necessarily in the best interest of Canadians. That said, I do believe that this approach will lead to a diplomatic resolution, which is inevitable, of course, as we all know. But we need to make sure that this is the best deal on behalf of all the industries, on behalf of all the workers, on behalf of all Canadians in all regions within Canada.
I want to ask you, I remember you being one of the first Canadian politicians that spoke vocally about the magnitude of this threat. You called it, I believe it was in February of this year, you called it a historic existential threat. Do you still feel that way?
I definitively do. I believe, and I've said from day one, that the president has created an environment of chaos, intentionally conflating issues like fentanyl and border security in order to rationalize this with his own citizens. But I fundamentally believe that this president, in this term, in this moment in history, has an imperialistic agenda, whether that's concentrating on Greenland or Canada. And he is focused on creating economic turmoil so he can potentially extract not only the value, but potentially even the land mass itself. And I think that Canadians have shown significant resolve and significant courage to meet this moment. The moment is here, and it will test more than just the slogans. It will test the country's strength from coast to coast to coast. And I believe that each region and each Canadian within the regions is willing to meet this particular moment in order to protect who we are as Canadians.
Premier Furey, I want to show you a clip of Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who, of course, you met during your time as
his good friend,
a good friend. And certainly you two have taken a very similar position on this issue of tariffs and how we should deal with the U.S. He just appeared on CNN this morning. I want to play that clip for you.
Sure.
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it.
Clearly, Premier Ford, who you said is a friend, is very vocal on his opinion on U.S. President Donald Trump. He has been on this position for months now. Is this the right approach?
Well, look, I think Premier Ford is expressing frustrations on behalf of all Canadians. And the Premier of Ontario is in a different position than the Prime Minister, and I do believe that the Prime Minister and Minister LeBlanc and others are appropriately handling this in a diplomatic fashion. But Premier Ford is right. This president is indeed disliked by all parties and by all regions within the country, because Canadians see it for what it is. It's an attack on us. It's an attack on our industries. It's an attack on our resource. It's an attack on our historic and lengthy friendship. But I do think all Canadians are smart enough to understand that this is just one president. That the friendship and the family relationship that exists across the border, whether that's a business or an actual family such as my own, will continue on well beyond the 4 years of this current president. So this particular moment is really going to test who we are. It's going to test our patience and it's going to test our resolve. But there is no question, in my mind, the Canadians that I've talked to are willing to meet it because they feel the same way that Premier Ford has expressed.
Let's talk about seeking friendships elsewhere, so to speak. We know that that's something, diversifying Canada's trade is something Prime Minister Carney has been speaking about for months now. And we know that earlier this week, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne and Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand have traveled to Mexico to boost economic ties there, pave the way for a meeting that we now know will happen between President Claudia Sheinbaum and Prime Minister Carney. Talk to me a little bit. First of all, what did you think about the Mexico trip, and what other countries do you think Canada could develop stronger economic ties with?
Well, first of all, I think our relationship with Mexico is incredibly important, not just for the trading relationship or the geographic proximity, but as a consequence of the CUSMA deal and the subsequent renegotiation, which undoubtedly is in the back of the president's mind. It's important that if the president's objective is to accelerate the renegotiation of this deal, it's important that there's alignment and strategic thought processes existing between the partners like Canada and Mexico, and because there could be an easy divide and conquer approach that the president would deploy, pitting Canada against Mexico, and then at that table, that is not strategically wise, in my opinion. I do believe coming with common ground amongst two partners, negotiating with a third would be a more strategically strong position to start any CUSMA renegotiations. I will say that the Prime Minister has done an incredible job at and using his Rolodex and his previous experience of trying to diversify the marketplace for Canadian industries. But I will give full credit to all premiers as well. If you look at their agendas, if you look at how they've been traveling, whether it's Premier Smith, Premier Moe, Premier Eby, or Premier Hogan, they have gone around the world to let the world know that we are now open for business. We are now ready to ship our goods and services elsewhere. We're next to the United States, but we don't want to be relying on the United States. And I do give full credit to all those political actors for taking a leadership role in diversifying the marketplace on behalf of all Canadian goods and services.
Premier Furey, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. Really appreciate it.
Happy to do so. Thanks very much.
Andrew Furey is a former Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador.